All right, guys. Well, hey, what's going on? Welcome. I am Booker Riddick. I'm super excited to be bringing you guys. We have an extra special guest here. I'm here with the wonderful and lovely Devra. Devra,
Hello again.
Would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, this is our good friend. Actually, why don't you? Okay, wait. Why don't you tell us about a little bit about yourself, like, so that people can get to know you a little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to share. So my name is Sarah Fisher. I live in the central area of Pennsylvania. And I don't know, I love Jesus. I love business. I'm super passionate about those two things, I feel like right now.
That's great.
But I've also lived in the Middle East for 2 years, so that adds a twist to kind of who I am, I guess. But
Okay.
that's a basis of who I am, I guess.
What was it like in the Middle East?
Oh my gosh. What was it like in the Middle East?
Well, why don't you tell us why were you in the Middle East? You weren't just vacationing there, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, vacation in Iraq, of course. No, so I lived in the Middle East for 2 years of my life in 2020 and 2021. And what I did was we worked with orphans, we worked with oppressed people groups. And I don't know if you guys have heard about ISIS, you probably have. So we worked with a lot of those survivors, and then also we worked with the kids that were captured by ISIS and then were rescued like years later. So we worked with those kids, and a lot of them, when they first came to the center where we were working, were super like abusive to each other. They would try to stone each other, kill each other, do different things like that. And it sounds really dramatic. It's not as dramatic as it sounds, but they were very traumatized. And so we worked with them. And I remember this one kid, like they started coming and their father was even abusive to them, even after they were like rescued. So they started coming and they were just these cutest little kids. And by the time that I left, which was probably, probably 8 months after they came to the center, they were like the most helpful little kids ever. And so like seeing that transformation when somebody's so broken and so traumatized and like has been through so much, I think, we say it takes years to get over what has happened to us, but a moment with Jesus, because we would sit with them and just worship. Wow. And like a moment with Jesus changes everything. And so that was like the most rewarding thing of being there, I think, for me.
That's awesome.
So that's a little bit of what we did.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
So like, tell us, Sarah, like you're like, I know you well. I've known
my best friend.
I've known Sarah for a long time. Just can you just tell us, like, one, you've always had a heart for the nations, but I think even more important than that, like, really, how does the presence of God, like, how do you feel like that impacts your life, and why is that important to the next generation?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think we look at like Gen Z, because I'm part of Gen Z, and I'm proud of being part of Gen Z.
Amen.
Like, do you remember that statistic you told me?
I don't know.
Okay. Anyways, you told me this really cool statistic about Gen Zers that I'm forgetting now, and it just impacted me in a moment because I was like, I'm very proud to be a Gen Z, and I wasn't before. So, but I think in Gen Z, like one thing that's happening right now is we have all these different ideas about what our identity is and like what our purpose is, and I think that like we get our identity mixed up with what other people think it should be, or our own idea of what it should be. And so, and it's interesting because even in like years past, I don't think there's ever been a time in history where the identity thing has been so huge.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It makes 100% sense.
Everybody sees it like you're, and this is, I want to love everybody, but I think that it's important to know the word and know the truth of the word and love people from that perspective. So the presence of God, I think, is really important in this generation, especially in Gen Z, because if we don't have that, we don't know who we are. And as a result of that, like we see what's going on in Israel, we see what's going on in all across the world, America, like we haven't been in the presence of the Lord, because when we're in the presence of the Lord, we are reminded of who He is. And when we're reminded of who He is, we're reminded of who we are. And I think that's why the presence of the Lord is so important. And not only that, but like the word of God, like in these last times have just been really important. And I've been reminded, for myself, how important it is to be able to open the Bible and to experience the presence of the Lord through it, and to live your life from that standpoint.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes incredible sense. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I just think, just to piggyback off of what you're saying, Sarah, like identity is under assault.
Yes.
But it's actually
That's
not. It's not a new assault. I think the deception, I think a religious lie, is that like there's some new ways and new thinking that's somehow distorting, like, and twisting young people. But it's the same old lie from the same old.
From the
liar.
beginning.
It's not. It hasn't changed, and it's just like did He say that?
Yes.
Like that's what Satan asked, like Adam and Eve in the garden, is like, he's like, oh, surely you won't die.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when I know, like, just me and Deborah, we're going through the book of Mark, and it talks about Jesus being tempted, and really, like, Satan, what he went after is he went after
the
like,
identity.
Yes, he went after his very sonship, which is the nature and the core of who Jesus is. He went after it, and I believe that's what's under attack. Yeah. But the reason why it's under attack is because it's powerful. Like when you're in the midst of a war.
Yes, that's so
like when you're in the midst of a war and you have an enemy that is strategic.
Mm-hmm.
Like what will happen? I'm not qualified to talk about war, first of all, but I'm qualified to talk about spiritual war. But what will happen is that they will try to. I love history. They will try to cut off resources and cut off things and aspects that make you strong and make you powerful. Mm-hmm. So the reason why identity is under attack is because identity has authority and power behind it.
That's so good.
It's when we see who we really are, like it's powerful. Like it has the power to shift atmospheres. It actually, when people see who they truly are, it actually has the power to transform nations.
Yeah, no, that's
like
so
it's really, really, really incredible, and I think that's why it's under assault.
I haven't thought about Gen Z that way. You know what I mean? Like, I know that there's an identity like crisis, and I would think about it as that, but not so much as the like, okay, what is actually being attacked? Like, what are they actually facing? What's the spiritual significance behind it? I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
That's
like
so
ever.
Cool.
Yeah.
So that makes sense to me. It's like, okay, that's what it's. The identity is what is under attack, and like that makes so much sense for what you see on social media all the time, and like what people are promoting, what other businesses are promoting, and like trying to be like inclusive and all the things. That makes sense.
Because if I have your identity and I could tell you who you are, I have you. Mm-hmm. You're a slave now. Like it's crazy. Like you're a slave, and now you could become a commodity for whatever it is that I want to sell you, whatever it is that I want to give you, so that I could have my own interests like fulfilled. Yeah. And but in the kingdom, it's the exact opposite. The Son of Man came to serve. Mm-hmm. He actually emptied himself of his like I actually don't. I'm not gonna lie. I'm talking to you guys about things I don't understand. I still don't really fully understand how like Jesus like was God,
that's so good.
was man, and somehow set that aside for that like for that moment, just like it talks about in Philippians, and he didn't count equality with God something to be grasped, but he made himself in the image and the likeness of a servant. That's the exact opposite of what human nature says. Human nature says is like when you have a title, then you use that title to gain power, to gain influence, to gain money, and then to build yourself up.
Yeah.
And Jesus did the exact opposite. Wow. He handed over his title and literally came and he washed feet. Like he washed feet.
That's so good, Booker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think too, like even with the presence of God, because you asked why is the presence of God so important? We got into this whole thing, which is so good. But I think like the other thing is the presence of God, like one moment in the presence of God can change your life. And what years of being in therapy and I think those things are important.
Sure.
I'm not disregarding those things, but I think overall the presence of God trumps that.
Yes.
And that's what's so important. And there's no other religion, there's no other God that the presence where your God comes and meets with you. And I just want to say that, like, I think that there's people that think, oh, there's New Age, there's, Islam, there's all these different religions. And I just want to say there is no other religion where your God actually personally comes and meets you except for Jesus Christ himself, like Christianity. So
that's a good word.
It's important.
That's a good word. Yeah. Well, I want to shift gears here a little bit.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more, Sarah, just about your story?
Which part of it?
I know that's such a general question, but like, I mean, so a great example here, and I think it's good because I know her well. Deborah does not know her. Deborah doesn't.
I'm new to this.
She has no idea. She doesn't know. She doesn't know Sarah at all. Like
No.
If you had, let's say you were sitting down, you were having coffee, just like we're sitting down right here, with someone like Deborah that had never met you before.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, hey, can you share your story and just Jesus intertwined in your story in like 5 minutes with this person that doesn't know you?
Oh my gosh, in 5 minutes. That's so good. I think there's a lot that I could say, but I think overall, so I grew up Amish, which is where my accent comes from. Everybody thinks it's Australian, but it's not. But it's so funny.
Great.
I know. But I grew up Amish, and then when I was, 8, my parents came to know Jesus through somebody sharing Jesus with them. And through that, they started going to a Bible study, which is not allowed in the Amish culture. Mm-hmm. They got excommunicated when I was 15 for going to that Bible study. I was back and forth until I was 19, just because I did the Amish Rumspringa. I dated an Amish guy for a little bit. But throughout that time, like I received Jesus when I was 13, and he became alive just through me reading the word. But throughout the time that I was back and forth from being Amish and non-Amish, I met Booker, which you're a really cool part of the story, I think. And Booker, I will say this, like you read the Bible and you read what Jesus did, and and then he's like, go and make disciples into all nations, heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, And I'd never seen anybody do that. Mm-hmm. In my life. Like I had seen, there was one person, her name's Leah Grace. She's a missionary in the Philippines, which I love her. And she spoke one time at a church, and that was the first time that I felt the presence of God come through a message so strongly. And I was like, I know that she lives what she preaches, but I hadn't done life with her. And so in the meantime, Booker comes in my life, and he was the first person that I saw actually living out the gospel. Well, it's the truth. Like, it's the truth. And so I ended up, it's so cool because I ended up starting to come to youth, my brothers, and then my whole family started coming to the church where he was going. And Booker, you just really discipled like my family, and my brothers were all over the place. I was all over the place. But I think like you really, the way you discipled me and us, it's like I'm a fruit of it sitting here today. And so I think, that's how powerful discipleship is too, because I'm a fruit of your discipleship, your time, And so, at 19 is when I ended up, officially leaving. And then I went to the Middle East for 2 years. I left, I was a youth leader with Booker before I left. And then I came back, and it's so cool because I came back, and he's in real estate, and I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do when long story short, I was in the Middle East. I thought that I would be there a lot longer than I was. But when everything went down with Afghanistan, we all remember that, I started realizing that I didn't ever pray for our own nation. And I realized our nation sometimes is a piece to other countries that holds it together, which is really powerful. So I started praying for our nation once a week, and that happened in August. And then in mid-October, I was praying, and I felt the Lord say, I'm actually calling you to America. And it was like somebody said, I'm calling you to be back Amish. Like that's how, which I would never do. I would never go back to the Amish culture. I love that culture though, but like I don't ever see myself. So it was that random.
It was like shocking.
Yes. And I'm like, there's no way. And so out loud, I was like, no, I'm not going back. And so I let it go for a week. I knew it was the voice of the Lord, but I let it go for a week. And then a week later, as I'm falling asleep, I said to the Lord, Lord, if I'm actually supposed to go back, you're going to have to make it so clear like handwriting on the wall, or somebody has no idea of the situation is going to have to tell me. And the next morning I wake up to this text from my friend, and she's like, hey, I had this dream of you the other night. And she didn't know the situation. And she's like, I really believe God is urgently calling you to America. And I'm like, okay. I actually I was very disappointed because I didn't want to come back at that time, but I did. And it was really hard for me to come back, but I did. And I literally just came back on the word of the Lord. I did not feel peace until I stepped in America. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I was tossing these ideas around, and in the meantime, you'd become a realtor. I was tossing these ideas around. A friend reaches out and she's like, I don't know if you're thinking about becoming a realtor, but if you are, we want to pay for all your courses. And so now I'm in the business world with Booker. And I think, looking back now, like, I think the intentionality of the Lord, where you were my leader and I came under your ministry kind of deal. And then when I was away, like, you were called out of the ministry into business. And that's exactly what the Lord did. And so I think that it's a good example. Sometimes the Lord, he doesn't always call you to a ministry. He sometimes calls you to a person as well. So, which is...
Well, and I'll tell you right now that I feel like just like really humbled, like, for you to share that. But I also would like to say too that you and your family, like, the passion that you have for Jesus is like, it's a flame that only Jesus himself could have lit. You know what I mean? It's like, yes, me amongst other people, I've had the opportunity to fan that, which is really cool and is really awesome. But it's like, it's just so real and so genuine. Like, your desire, one, like, not just your hunger for Jesus, but I feel like your pure desire to serve and love your community and be Jesus to your community. And, like, they're just really bold, Deborah. Like, so they're excommunicated from the Amish community. And most people, when you're excommunicated from somewhere, it's like, I felt this, or when you feel rejected, like, your natural instinct is to do what? It's to run. It's, okay, I'm going to go away. I got to go figure this out. I got to go find. Well, they moved across the street from where they grew up. Like, and like, really, like, I feel like in the midst of a community that really rejected them. And they have spent the last decade just loving this community. So, and, like, the fruit from it is, like, real. Like, there is there is a movement happening, I will tell you right now, in Clinton County and Centre County, like, amongst, like, the Amish community they're hungry for the simple gospel. And it's so wild. And, like, being, like, a city boy, I was like, I never would have thought that, like, I'd have an opportunity to have, like, influence in like, the Amish community in Central PA. But it's like, but it's because of your family's faithfulness. Like, you guys have been like a lamppost, and it's been super, super cool. But I think too, to talk a little bit about business, like, I feel comfortable saying this. Like, I know that God's called me to be an evangelist. Like, I know that. Like, and sometimes when you're an evangelist at the church, it's like nobody really knows what to do with you. Like, you're just kind of, it's like, you're like, that's like the you know what I mean? Like, what do you do with the evangelist in the church? You know, and it's like, so sometimes they'll stick titles on you because they don't know what to do with you. But that's, like, so true. But, like, I feel like the Lord is actually one. Like, I feel like I was raised in the, like, I didn't grow up in church. But like, being a part of like, ministry full time and being on staff, I felt like it was God's opportunity to kind of, like, grow me up. And I've had wonderful. I want to thank everybody out there that's had an opportunity to, just like you said, like, be discipled. That's fathered me or pastored me in a way. And there was a lot of things that needed pastored out of me. And I think I got, like, a lot of, like, some really good hands-on experience of people just really pouring into my life by being in full-time ministry. But a lot of times I didn't really fit a box. And I didn't really fit in, honestly. Like, and I think it's cool. I think it's great now. But but now being in business, like, you just see, I think the next great move is, I think there's going to be people who maybe don't have ministry titles that are going to have an opportunity to lead revivals across our nation. They're going to do significant things. I think, and I want to say this to you, Deborah, like, you have a desire for the performing arts. Like, that's a God-given desire. Yes. I think it's wonderful. Yeah. And I think that the Lord is actually going to use and utilize you in such a way that's really incredibly strategic And you're going to see that sphere and group of people, I feel like it's kind of like an unreached people group here in America in a lot of ways, because the church is intimidated by them, and the way that you carry yourself and the purity and the dignity that you carry yourself is going to be so attractive to that group of people, and they're going to see Jesus in you.
So
and I think there's more people out there like that, you know, whether it's in the arts, whether it's in business, whether it's in finance, and, you know, in certain trades where like he's calling you to he wants to have your whole heart.
Yes.
But he might not be calling you to work at a building. We need pastors though. Like we need like if you're calling to be a pastor, be a pastor, please. Like
we need it all.
We need you. We need you.
Yeah.
Like America.
If you're called to minister, get in ministry now.
Do it. Like yes. But like I also think there's a whole other side to that as well too. I just wanted to share that.
I think
I received that, Booker.
Yeah.
I really
so
do.
good.
I do. But I understand, like, when you were speaking, I received that in a different kind of way because I grew up in that being kind of different from the other kids. I didn't want to do performance until I, like, what was that, high school?
Oh, wow.
Or, like, high school into college, because I found a group of people that I could, like, oh, okay, I like doing this because I saw it my freshman year of high school. I was in, like, orchestra and choir and all those other things.
Oh, that's so cool.
But then when I saw the actual, like, the kids learning to do performance stuff and like acting and like the costumes and all those different things, I thought I could do that. Well, I want to try it. So then, but I didn't get to do it at that school. We ended up moving. The next school that I went to, I tried it there and I was really good at it. But the thing was that none of the other kids really wanted to be around me because it was a type of school where, I mean, it may be the Bible Belt, but there wasn't a whole lot of Jesus going around. it was pretty, yeah. It was
the Bible Belt, but it wasn't the belt of truth. Like, it was somebody's belt. I don't know whose belt it was.
It was somebody else's belt. Yeah. It was just, it was what it was. But there was a clear difference between the people who were in it to be like having fun and doing the things and like, but they were part of a group of people that were into all this other stuff that I was like not comfortable with. And then I ended up being favored more by the teachers and favored more by other students. And like, I was okay over here in this own little corner, but we were all part of the we were all theater kids.
Sure.
So that, like, I understood what you were coming from with that. And I actually grew up around a lot of Amish and Mennonite families in Lancaster County.
Oh, that's
so I understand because I
have a lot of relatives in Lancaster.
I recognized your accent when you started talking. So I was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, I understood. I was like, yeah, okay. But my family has a lot of connections. My grandma drives them and does all the things. Yeah,
that's incredible.
They absolutely take such good care of her. They love on her, and she has a community of people that she can go to. Because she's older and she's usually like more by herself. She does have my aunt and their whole family, but yeah, it's not every day, you know. So they are always with her, and it's really, really sweet.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
My gosh!
I even went to a Mennonite church when I was younger.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But so
There's
I understand the origin story is there.
That's so cool.
There's some Mennonite churches that are on fire for the Lord too.
Yeah,
like,
there are.
I know that my dad has. Which, speaking of, you know, the obedience factor and where you're called and everything, and the Amish, but like when my parents got excommunicated, you're like, we didn't leave the area, and I am so thankful. I just want to say, like, I'm so thankful for my heritage and how I grew up. Like, there's so many valuable things. I would never go back, but I am so thankful for the Amish community, for the Amish people that I grew up and was a part of. Yeah. But when they left, or when they got excommunicated, this Bible teacher came to them. His name is Bob Plank. I think you've met him.
But he's incredible.
Such a great Bible teacher.
Awesome, dude.
Yes. Yep. But he came to them because my dad was thinking about buying a farm like a few hours away just to get away. Because we'd lost everything. We'd lost our farm. We'd lost pretty much everything. So my parents had to start from square one. And he's like, I'm going to buy this farm. And Bob comes to him and he's like, why are you moving away? And then he starts talking about how in Revelation we see how Jesus wipes away every tear after we're already with him.
Wow.
And you're like, why is Jesus wiping the tears away when we're with him? And my dad's like, I don't know. But Bob's like, because you just saw every one of your family members that don't know Jesus get slaughtered. Like you saw them go to hell. And I guess not get slaughtered, but go to hell.
No, that's worse. Actually,
I know.
I'll be honest with you. Like,
really,
there's nothing worse than hell.
The wrath of God being poured out on your family members that don't know Jesus, and that hit my dad so hard that he's like, "Well, I can't just leave if I want to see a move in the Amish community. Like, even though I've been hurt, even though like it's hard, I can't just leave." And so, the last 10 years of my parents' life have just been of them, interceding for the Amish community, praying for them. And we didn't see anything, zero, for like 8 years.
Wow.
Probably 8 years. Yeah, 8 years after they left. And then all of a sudden things started, it was like a trickle at first where things started coming up. And, I was able to talk to my grandma about Jesus, different things. And all of a sudden in the past 2 years, the floodgates have just opened. Yeah. And all these people are coming to know Jesus within the community. And they're not leaving the community because they want to leave the community. They're staying because they want to actually reach more people. Yeah. But then the time always comes that there comes a time where it's like, I've chosen Jesus. And because of that, they're excommunicated. Yeah. So that move has been really incredible. It's almost like once the religious spirit catches up. Yes. It's almost like, okay, now you're at a point of decision. Yes. And so, they stay. Yeah. They stay as long as they can to reach more people. But then there is a time when it's like, no, we have to actually step aside and be excommunicated. So
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, you probably have.
Yes. I had this one really lovely older couple. They're named Ruben and Elsie, and I still absolutely love them. It. But they had like stuff, like they would have like the batteries in their lights and different things like and all that. And I visited their house, and it's very Amish and things, but they ended up like getting in trouble because they had more like woke political beliefs after a while. they started to be like, well, we actually kind of, and then they started to get in trouble with their community because they didn't believe the exact same things. That's what I'm saying. You're not allowed to be involved in any of that stuff at all. Yeah. So for them to be like, well, we kind of actually, they were like, no, you don't. Yeah. And they cracked a whip on them. So they were just like, well, we're just going to go build our house somewhere and you don't have that. And that was the end of that. That's crazy. But they are so lovely. I miss them actually. I wish I could visit them.
Yeah. But I think like coming back to that, the importance of obedience, and when you're obedient, the fruit of it, like, and it says in Psalms 126, and I just feel like my family's been living in this place for the last 2 years where, the last 8 years were really hard, but then the past 2 years have just been, I'm just going to go there, have just been really incredible. And it says, in Psalms 126, it says something about restore our fortunes. It says, when the Lord restored the fortunes of Zion, we were like those who dreamed. Our mouths were filled with laughter and our tongues with songs of joy. And then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. Restore our fortunes, Lord, like the streams in the Negev. Those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy, and those who go out weeping, carrying seed to Sarah, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them. And my family this past 2 years, it's felt like they've literally been living in this chapter. Yeah. Because there's so much sighing, there's so much weeping, there's so much hardship when we lost everything when we left. Yeah. But now we're walking back with a harvest that's greater than we can carry. Yep. And I think that's the beauty of obedience and following Jesus. Mm-hmm. And even when it's hard. So my encouragement to anyone watching this is like, if God has called you to something, if he's called you to a certain area, like be obedient and stay in that, because this can be your testimony. This will be your testimony. Like, do not be weary in well doing, for in due season you will reap. It's the law of sowing and reaping. Yeah. And so, and even like the other thing is, I didn't want to leave Iraq because I was like, America isn't hungry. I've since repented for saying that, but I didn't want, but how kind is the Lord to bring me back at just a time of revival to see the fruition of my prayers and to be a part of it. That's good, man. Like it has wrecked me over and over again. And I'm in real estate. Yeah. And guess who's calling me for real estate? my Amish cousins.
Come on.
Like
Come
that,
on, Jesus.
I'm
Yeah.
believing
There we
that they'll
go.
know Jesus, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
maybe I shouldn't share all that because this will probably be posted
Well, you
everywhere.
know what?
But
Honestly, I'm going to tell you right now, if you're an Amish person, you're watching this, you're breaking a rule anyway, so you might as well just receive Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
You're breaking
boom,
the rule
bro.
anyway.
That's so good.
Checkmate, okay? Like,
That's so good. Yeah.
So funny.
And the thing is, I want to say this, like, we're not about making
Oh,
people
yeah.
leave the Amish. We're about them receiving Jesus
No.
and staying
we're not
Yeah.
in their community. Like, that's
Mhm.
the, stay where you are,
Yeah.
but bring Jesus, like,
Yep.
to the people
Yeah.
you're
Mhm.
with. So I think
yeah,
that's the,
yeah. Like the people that you're talking about that have left, it's like they've come to a point of decision where it was either follow Jesus
or
like,
leave,
or
yeah.
like bend to your
If
culture.
they want more of,
Yeah, like versus, but it's like God doesn't. It's not just like He doesn't want to tear down a community.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
Actually, the very opposite is true.
yeah,
Like He actually wants
exactly.
to build up a community.
Exactly.
But it's like when you do come to a point of decision where it's like I do I have to choose culture?
Yeah.
And like what I've known or Jesus, like there are those moments, and not just for people in the Amish community,
Mhm.
like for people outside of the Amish community as well, and for young people
That's
with
so
this day and
true.
age, it's like
That's
know,
to take a stand.
yeah, like to take a stand, like it's
Yeah.
like when you're when the agenda, I'll just say it, like when political agendas,
Mhm.
when like it's like you either absolutely embrace every aspect of the transgender identity, homosexuality, all these different
Mhm.
things. When hey, like you got to live this certain way, you got to whatever it is, whether it's like it doesn't matter what the culture is. It's when you come to a point of decision where it's either Jesus or this, the answer is always Jesus.
Yeah, that's so
You know what I
good,
mean?
Booker.
Whether
Oh
even
my
sometimes
gosh.
it's in a religious community, like
Yeah.
when it's like.
Mhm.
Okay, hey, like you're learning, you're growing, God's doing something, and you come to a point of decision, choose Jesus. Choose Jesus. Now the reality is that Jesus loves every community. He loves the Amish community, he loves the Black community, he loves the gay community, he loves the transgender community. Like
Amen.
he actually paid a high price to actually receive people from every tribe and every tongue.
Mhm.
And like
Mhm.
I think
That's
sometimes
so
we only
good.
think about that as like countries because
Wow.
that's the way we view things, but there's tribes within a country because there's little subcultures. And he's reaching every tribe. He wants.
Yeah.
He longs for that. He desires that.
Mhm.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And it brings it back to the whole identity thing, and oh, it's so good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. No, that's a lot. That is a lot. So.
Amen.